Okay, we're back, and I am reminded that one casualty of the government shutdown has been the PANDA cam at the National Zoo. I'm reminded this because people against the National Defense Authorization Act, acronym PANDA, very clever, something that you're hooked up with, Daphne Lee. Daphne Lee is joining us. She is a Republican activist, libertarian activist a little bit, also a bit of a civil libertarian. And as part of PANDA, this organization, you have been trying to get local governments to pass resolutions effectively. Why don't you go ahead and explain what it has to do with respect to the Defense Authorization Act?
Well, as we were just talking about, things tend to get gridlocked in Congress and progress is slow to be made. The National Defense Authorization Act is typically the military budget appropriations bill. It's passed every single year for the last 50 years. What made NDAA Fiscal Year 2012 in particular controversial is they inserted two sections that have nothing to do with the budget at all regarding indefinite detention and codifying the AUMF, which is Authorization of Use for Military Force, into permanent law. It codified that resolution that was granted to George Bush and then expanded under it who is covered. And that's where it gets controversial. Some people still don't believe U.S. citizens are covered under it. Regardless, indefinite detention of anyone obviously goes against the principles of this country, but we believe that U.S. citizens are covered under this.
And this all harkens back, so the viewers can understand, basically to the Patriot Act and everything that happened immediately following 9/11. That's kind of where it all began, but what you're saying is that since then, NDAA language has been expanded, and now presumably it allows indefinite detaining and detention of American citizens under a pretty broad umbrella of presumed or perceived wrongdoing. Basically, if you have been found to be doing any activities that the government finds suspicious, basically under this act, you can be detained. And what your group chose to do, which I think is fascinating, is to go to both the Clark County Commission and the City Council and put forward this resolution asking them to state unequivocally that they would instruct the police department, Metro Police Department here in Las Vegas, to decline requests by federal agencies acting under these detention powers, anything that could basically infringe on a constitutional freedom. What was the reaction, real quick, in both cases of the County Commission and the City Council? What happened?
Well, we are working on a national level, and our goal is to pass legislation either at the state level or the city level or the county level, or to also have sheriffs pass a resolution. Basically, we had a bill at the state level. It was killed, unfortunately. It had 16 co-sponsors, which was actually a huge amount for a bill. If any of you, watched the state legislature, it was not allowed to be heard in committee. So then our backup plan was to go down to the cities and the counties and have them pass a non-compliance ordinance, which the state of California just passed this week. Their governor signed their anti-NDAA bill, which is essentially what our resolution is. And yesterday, Albany, the capital of New York, they passed in their city council.
So what happened here in Nevada?
So here in Nevada, we went to, Bob Beers was kind enough to take this up for me. He shared the information with the council. We had a vote. We were successful. It was an overwhelming 5-2. It was, I feel like a beautiful day. I think that's kind of a we the people taking back. If Congress cannot correct errors that they've made, then the people can come back and have redress with their local government.
I can't let the segment end without asking you this question. So the city, the commission put this on hold. The city voted to go ahead and uphold this resolution. Who's going to make that decision at Metro? Will it be the sheriff?
And
do you trust the sheriff to read this sentence, that anything that could infringe upon the constitutional freedoms of speech, religion, assembly, privacy, or rights to counsel, that he's going to thwart a federal agent who has asked him to detain a person?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, right now there are sheriffs all over the country that are standing up and saying, we've taken an oath of affirmation to protect the Constitution of the United States.
It's not a violation of the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, however, because when you've got local governments making a decision or statute, and it conflicts with a national statute, the national statute wins.
No, the Supremacy Clause is, number one, the laws have to be made in pursuance to the Constitution for the Supremacy Clause to apply. And
okay, well, let's assume until you get this law overturned at the Supreme Court, apparently it's, as of now, in accordance with the Constitution. The guy who passed Tim Donnelly in California, he's a constitutional attorney, and he assured the legislature of California this is not infringing upon the Supremacy Clause. The federal government cannot instruct local governments
to carry out
violate
these.
the Constitution.
Yeah,
I think
so-
it's fascinating that you've gotten a state and at least one city, and as you mentioned, a couple other
I have
cities
high
on
hopes for the
board,
county.
so.
I really do. They heard me speak this last Tuesday, and they all had smiling faces. So I'm hoping that they take this seriously.
I
A
don't
lot
know
of
if
people
I-
have died for our rights, and this is not something that we should sit around and hope for the best on.
Constitutional scholar Doug Gillespie doesn't fill me with
All
all
right.
kinds of...
Nonetheless, a good effort on civil liberties. Thanks
Thank you,
for
guys.
explaining all
Thank
that.
you.
One day, somebody's going to have to say enough.